Today we're going to be taking a look at the Ratel RDA by Kaees. This product was sent to me for the purpose of this review. Let's go ahead, open it up, and see what it comes with. Inside of the box, your package is going to include this little informational card with some bulleted points here, features of the RDA. If you want to pause that and read that, you can go ahead and do that. And then you're also going to have an accessory bag, which is going to have some spare O-rings, some coils, a Allen key tool, and spare grub screws, as well as a squonking pin. Taking a closer look at the Ratel RDA, at the top you do have a resin 810 drip tip. If we remove that, you can see there is an O-ring on the catch cup on the inner portion. Right below that, on your airflow adjustment, you do have a little bit of texture, kind of like a very fine knurling. Here is the front of the RDA. It has this emblem right here. And then flipping it over, nothing on the back. On either side, you do have this very large 3-slot airflow on either side. Flipping it upside down, here's the bottom of the Ratel RDA. It is going to measure 24 millimeters in diameter. Flipping it to the side, you can see it does have a very nice protruding gold-plated 510 pin. Let's go ahead and screw this down on a mod, and I'll show you more about the airflow and the build deck. So once we screwed it down on the mod, I'm able to adjust the airflow a little bit easier and show you everything that this airflow does. So we have 3 large slots, and then if you turn it, you can start to close down those slots from the side. And if we keep turning, it'll start to open up a series of holes. So the outside of the cap is just 3 slots, but the inside you have 2 different airflow options, slotted or these little holes here, and then we can go ahead and turn it. Starts to close off those holes and open up those slots again. Let's go ahead and remove the top cap. So here is the barrel and the airflow adjustment cap separated. So this is what your barrel looks like. Now it does feel as though this is an aluminum cap. So there is the bottom here. This is the part that goes onto the deck that is notched. You can see there are little track systems in there for lining up with your build deck to keep your cap from free spinning. And here's the airflow control adjustment. Go ahead and put those back together. I must say the O-rings out of the box are really nice and stiff. And here is the build deck. So the build deck, they're calling it a Y-shaped build deck, making it easier to put your coils in and trim the coil legs after installation. If you look at it from the side, yeah, I guess you could kind of say that's Y-shaped. But basically you have 2 solid posts. You have your negative post and your positive post, and then they're split in half. It's 1 solid post just milled into that Y shape there. So you do have 4 separate terminals for your leads. Here's how your screws will go in. They will go in and hit the flat side of your coil, and those are Allen screws in there. And here, of course, is going to be your juice well. Now, it does have a fairly deep juice well. I would say this looks to be probably 7, maybe 8 millimeters deep, so that's nice. It does have a really nice deep juice well in there. Right now, it has the regular 510 pin installed, but with the squonk pin is slightly raised in there when you install the squonk pin. Let's go ahead and put a build in this. So the coils that I'm going to be using today are KB coils, and these are going to be just simple 29 gauge wrapped and 38 gauge aliens. They're going to ohm out to about a 0.2. So I do want to go ahead and pre-cut my leads a little bit, even though you can get under there and cut them. I have this really nice handy coily tool that just makes it really easy for me to pre-cut my leads. So I'm going to go ahead and pre-cut my leads to a 3.5 millimeter on here. Okay, so I've went ahead and pre-cut my leads. Let me go ahead and open up the posts here. So installation on this is going to be really simple. You do literally just have to drop your leads down in, just like that. Do the same thing on the other side. And once my leads are placed in, I can go ahead and tighten them down. Just holding my finger on top of the coil. So there's my coils installed. Now I haven't adjusted them or anything yet, but as you can see, 3.5 millimeters was perfect. You can just barely see my leads coming down there, so I'm not going to have to clip them again or anything, just where I needed them to sit. Now I can go ahead and adjust my coils and pull them around here, straighten them out. Next thing I want to do is check to see where my airflow is going to be hitting on here, so I'm just going to go ahead and take the barrel section and place it on there. So on either side of the base of the RDA, you do have these little cutout notches, and that's where you're going to line up your barrel track. So just pop my cap down on there. Again, these O-rings are quite stiff. So my barrel is locked down on there, and now we can look through the sides and see where the airflow is hitting my coils. So the airflow is hitting the top of the coil there and the center. I actually would like my coil to be just a little bit higher so that that top row there isn't just going over top of it. Now it does state that this is a angled downward airflow. If you look at the top cap there, it does have a little bit of a ledge that is going to angle that airflow downward a little bit, but I'm going to see if I can raise my coils just a little bit. So before I do that, I just want to check and make sure that I'm nowhere near touching the top there. So we can go ahead and take our barrel off and raise those coils just a little bit higher. Just going to put my little tool in there and pull up. Then do the same thing on the other side. And that's what they look like on a side-by-side there. Okay, so after adjusting my coils, you can see that the airflow is hitting more of that coil. If I tip it there, you can see that that top row is missing it a little bit. But once we add in this top airflow cap here, that's going to angle that top airflow row downward. So now as you can see that angle. So this should be hitting my coil pretty nicely, and that's what the coils look like from the top down. So now let's go ahead and pulse these coils and get them firing evenly. So we're just going to go ahead and pinch and strum these coils to get them firing nice and evenly. So there we go. Now our coils are glowing nice and evenly from the inside out. Now we can go ahead and let them cool down and wick them up. So we're just going to use some cotton threads and pull these wicks all the way through. Now this RDA, if you guys aren't already thinking it, I've been thinking it this whole time. It looks very similar to the Dead Rabbit RDA. So you're going to wick this just like you would with the Dead Rabbit RDA. You're going to have to leave your wicks really long so that they can reach down to the bottom of that juice well. And you're going to want to make sure that your wicks are nice and tight inside of those coils. Let's go ahead and cut our wicks. So as you can see, really long tails on either side. And I'm not even going to fluff out that cotton or comb it or anything like that. I'm just going to tuck all of these wicks down here into this juice well. And now my cotton's just lightly touching the bottom of that deck. I want it to lightly touch the bottom of the deck because it's going to rely on ciliary action if I squonk on this device. Now dripping, if you're dripping through the top, you're just going to drip directly onto the coils. But if you want to use this in squonking mode, those wicks are going to rely on drawing e-liquid up from the bottom of the RDA. Let's go ahead and throw some e-liquid on these coils. And that is the Ratel RDA by Kaees. Let's go back up top, have a vape on it, and I'll give you my thoughts and opinions. Alright, and that was an up-close look at the Ratel RDA by Kaees. So what are my thoughts? Well, let's go over starting at the top, fit and finish. I love the acrylic drip tip that they include. The acrylic drip tip does have the O-ring in the catch cup, so that's a big pro for me. Machining wise and tension on the O-ring, everything's good there. Next, we're going to go down to the airflow. So the airflow, this thing has a ton of airflow. You have two airflow options. You can either go with the tiny holes which close off from the side, or you can go with 3 strips of slots which again close off from the side. Both airflows seem to be pretty smooth. I'll go ahead and let you listen to it on the slotted airflow first, because for me on the slotted airflow, it feels a little bit more turbulent, and obviously wide open, it's way too much airflow for me. So go ahead and do fully open. No restriction at all. It's like breathing. There's no restriction. You do get a lot of vapor production, but I don't get a whole lot of flavor with those 3 airflow holes open. And like I said, it just feels maybe a little bit turbulent to me, but that absolutely could be because I'm used to a restricted vape, and this has no restriction with that way. Now if we turn it all the way over to the airflow holes and have those wide open, I'll let you listen to that. So that has a bit of restriction to it, and it definitely smooths out the vape. I don't know if you're able to hear that audibly, but what I get from it when it's on the holes and not the slits is a much smoother, slightly restricted direct lung vape on there. So I prefer it with the hole side. And additional to that, I prefer it about 3/4 the way to halfway open. So this is at 3/4 the way. I'll let you go ahead and listen to that. Nice and quiet, very smooth, and I start to really be able to taste the flavor of my e-liquid. Wide open, the flavor's there, but it's not great. It's not until I close it off about halfway that flavor really punches in and I can pick up all the notes on my flavors. So that's the airflow. I definitely think they did a great job of giving you many options for the airflow, though I'm going to tell you right now, I prefer the holes over the slits. Next, let's talk about the cap. So they did do a locking cap on this, and that is a big pro. Not only is it a locking cap, but there is a little track in there so that when you are closing your airflow off down from the side over, you can adjust your cap so the airflow is hitting center of your coils, and that is a big pro for me. Now let's talk about the build deck. So the build deck is pretty underwhelming and unimpressive. We've seen this build deck or a variation of this build deck before. It's basically the Dead Rabbit build deck with the posts milled slightly different. What that means though is that if you are squonking on this mod, you are going to be relying on those wicks to draw that e-liquid up into your coils. And for me, I found that I prefer this in dripping over squonking, because in dripping mode I can drip right down on top of my coils and I don't have to rely so much on the ciliary action. If you are a fan of the Dead Rabbit, but maybe you didn't like the airflow of the Dead Rabbit, maybe the Ratel RDA is something for you to check out, because again, it does have that same build deck style as the Dead Rabbit, but slightly different airflow. Now let's talk about cons for this device. So I did find one con, and it's really not anything with the design or the machining of it. It is going to be that the paint is flaking off on the inside of the top cap, which may not be a big deal to a lot of people out there, but for me, I would have rather them just not painted the inside of the top cap than to deal with paint flicking off. And I noticed that the paint is only coming off where the track rubs against the base. So it may only come off in that area and never come off anywhere else on the RDA, but I definitely did want to mention that to you guys because I've not had this thing for very long as far as in use. I've been using it for about 2 weeks, and I think after 2 weeks of use to already seeing the paint coming off on the inside of the barrel, I just wish they wouldn't have painted the inside of the barrel. So that's my thoughts on the Ratel RDA. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not already, click that subscribe button. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.